If you're not using heat on your thin, fine hair, you could be ruining it. Okay, let me explain. Okay, now I've been doing hair professionally for over 30 years, and I do not think that it's gonna surprise you when I tell you that in that time, I've learned that heat damages hair. I know, shocking, right? But beyond that, how we actually apply the heat to the hair can determine the amount of damage that it causes. See, this is an honest question, okay? I legitimately want you to comment below, and I want you to tell me, do you dry your hair, like blow dry it, or do you air dry your hair? Because what I'm about to reveal to you, it might change that completely. These are huge claims, right? So in this video, I'm not only gonna likely completely change the way that you think about drying your hair, I'm also gonna share my process that I teach my clients with thin, fine hair who want their hair to look a little bit more full and more dense, that helps them to minimize the amount of damage while maximizing their results. So I want to reference a study, okay? And it was a study done by the National Library of Medicine. The objective of this study was to assess the changes in ultrastructure, morphology, moisture content, and color of the hair after repeated shampooing and drying with the hairdryer at a range of different temperatures. And this actually included air drying. So check out what this study found. It found that natural drying, okay, exposed to ambient temperature after gently removing the water drops with a towel, it's usually considered to be safer than using a hairdryer. I think we all can agree on that, right? However, damage to the CMC was noted only in the naturally dried group. What? CMC. All that is, it's the cell membrane complex. Basically, it's kind of like the glue or the waterproof seal for your hair. When it's damaged, hair doesn't hold together very well. Okay? That means it dries out faster and it breaks much more easily. Okay, then it goes on to say that it is conceivable that a long-lasting wet stage is as harmful as a high drying temperature and maybe even more dangerous to the CMC. Did you catch that? The conclusion was that although using a hairdryer caused more surface damage than natural drying, the results of the study actually suggest that using a hairdryer at a distance, specifically of about 15 centimeters, with continuous motion, caused less damage than drying hair naturally. Yeah. Okay, so now that we understand how important it is that we really pay attention to the process and how we protect your hair from that heat damage, and that we will likely be using heat because in an odd way, it's actually potentially less damaging. We also need to make sure that every step we take minimizes any of the damage that could be applied to your hair. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna towel blot your hair, okay? When you get out of the shower, you're gonna towel blot it. You just wanna get most of that moisture out. You can use a cotton towel or a microfiber towel. However, I would say that a microfiber towel would be a little bit better. This is especially true if you've got curly or wavy hair, because it actually does help to rough the cuticle up a little bit less. When it gets to straight hair, it's not as big of a deal, but it's definitely not gonna hurt, so you kind of might as well. After you get out of the shower, you've towel blotted your hair, the next step is gonna be using a heat protectant. That realistically, a heat protectant is not an option. It, to me, is an absolute necessity. And it is easy to keep them off the scalp because I know there is a little bit of a concern with thinner, finer hair. You're trying to create volume and you're worried about using products that's gonna potentially weigh your hair down. But we're gonna talk about all of that. Now, the specific one I've been using is actually this. It's called Color Fanatic. And I've been using it for a while now. I'm kind of a big fan of it. It's got a little bit of conditioning quality to it as well, but it does a good job of actually just protecting it as well as conditioning it without weighing the hair down too much. I don't find that it's really that much of a problem with it. But you're gonna spray this away from your scalp. So you're gonna tilt your head off to the side. You're gonna spray it so that you can really try to get it from mid-shaft through the ends. Now, on really short hair, that's gonna be much harder to do, and some of it's going to get on your roots. But that's not a huge problem because again, this doesn't weigh your hair down too bad, but also because we're gonna be taking other steps to encourage the amount of volume in your hair. So I wouldn't stress about that. But in a perfect world, we keep it off the roots. Okay, now I wanna make sure that I share a couple of my absolute favorite game-changing, and I hate that word, but they are game-changing products for thin, fine hair. I'm gonna talk about them in just a little bit, but You definitely are not gonna wanna miss those. Okay, now the next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna add a volumizing product. Now, why? Because I know that many of us don't wanna use a volumizer, especially with thin, fine hair, because there is a concern that maybe the product is gonna weigh your hair down. Now, this is a valid concern, but the reason that I think volumizers are so important is because the mistake that I see people make is that they don't use the volumizing product, and then they try to use different heating techniques to try to get their hair to hold that bend. It might be rollers, or it might be a round brush, or it might be a flat iron or curling iron, or whatever it is. But then the hair falls flat, right? Because it doesn't have the foundation to hold that volume. It's kind of like trying to get a roof to stay on a house with no walls to put it on. So we need to have something. Now, if you want a little bit of a lighter hold, there's this one that I've been using. You've probably seen it around, but this is called Caviar, and it's a lot lighter. I mean, if you want more volume, then it's not gonna be enough, but if you want just a little bit of something to your hair to give it a little bit of control and volume with very little feel, this is gonna be much more your game. If you want something that's a little bit stronger than that, then you can try the Color Wow, right? So this extra large foam mousse I think is really nice. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of product in the hair, but again, it does give it a little bit more volume than the Caviar. And then if you want to step up to even a little bit more, something that's got a lot more control, that's a lot more aggressive, can give you more volume, but you'll definitely feel more in your hair, the Stay High Mousse. This is from Redmond, and I've been using this a bit. I definitely say that this is more aggressive, so just keep that in mind. You're gonna feel more in your hair, but you're also gonna get more volume. Regardless of which of these products you use or what volumizing aid that you're using, I would say that for most people that have thin, fine hair, you're gonna find that gels and creams are a little bit heavier, so that's probably what I would stay away from. I would lean more into mousses or foam style products like the ones I just showed you. Okay, caveat to all of this. I actually had a comment in one of my more recent lives that basically was to the effect that he's probably not talking about specific products because he's not being paid by them, and or I'm not being sponsored by them, or I'm not making money on selling the products. So I want to get this out of the gate very quickly. First of all, this channel will never ever be about just trying to sell you product. And I'll never be the one that tells you about products only because I'm getting paid to, or tries to gatekeep products because I'm not getting paid to talk about them. That has never been the ethos of this channel. It's never been my approach behind the chair. I am telling you simply, just like I tell my clients, what I use and why I think it would be a good or a very strong option for you. After that, I don't care what you use. I don't care if you buy it from me or buy it from somebody else. That's not where I make the bulk of my income on this channel, or sales was never the place that I made the bulk of my income behind the chair, right? So my goal is to give you the best option for the best hair, for the best results, period. Because it makes my life much easier, right? If I can give you good techniques and if I can give you good products that function well for you, guess what? You're gonna trust me. And then what do? Well, in this scenario, you watch the next video. And then the channel grows and everything works better for me. So that's where this is built. So just so you know, nobody's sponsoring this video. This is 100% simply stuff that I use and I like. That's where it ends. And the next step is gonna be the drying process. Now that we've worked the product through, we're gonna start blow drying the hair. We're gonna get the moisture out. And at this point, you can use a brush. You don't absolutely have to, but if you are gonna use a brush, I've been using the volumizer for a long time. You've probably seen me talk about it. I'm a big fan of these brushes simply because they grab the hair really easily. These slots allow air to go through it. It helps to dry the hair a little bit quicker. It's just a great tool for getting those roots up off the scalp and starting to get a little bit of encouraged root lift, which helps as one part of the equation of creating bend that creates true volume. But once we start with the brush or with our hands, we're gonna be using air, and that air is gonna come from somewhere, likely a blow dryer. I have been talking a long time about a very specific blow dryer I use. And I don't choose to use this blow dryer simply because I'm sponsored or I work with the company. I use it because it actually works really well. And I think that if you've got thin, fine hair, we don't really get the luxury of just using whatever. As we've determined, it's very important the way that we approach it. I've been using the Life and blow dryer. Now, I like this for a handful of reasons, but the main one is that it's got a lot of air pressure to it. This is a pro and a con, okay? Because some people will say, well, there's so much air pressure, it just blows my hair everywhere, it's hard to get control out of it. Now, this goes back to what we talked about earlier. It isn't just blow drying your hair that minimizes damage instead of air drying it. It's about how far that heat source is away from your hair that they find actually minimizes the damage by comparison to air drying. and that is about 15 centimeters. There's so much air pressure out of this because they're utilizing air pressure versus heat. So this at a medium heat temperature, which is about 120 degrees, is well below the concern level that we find. So if you look at what actually damages hair, a science-based drying protocol, for instance, below 140 degrees actually is a very minimal amount of damage, even to thin, fine hair. So this being at 120 degrees is below that. And again, if we're holding that now away from the head, it's even less. That's one of the key factors. I set this on medium because there's a cool shot, room temperature, medium, and then a hot. I set it on medium, hold this further away from the head if it's blowing things around too much, and we're golden. It's gonna dry hair exceptionally quick. It's exceptionally quiet. It's not damaging. It's the reason that I choose this specifically. Yes, I have tested this against other blow dryers that are a similar shape and size and more than twice the cost. And this blow dry the hair quicker. Just what it is. I tested it. That's what I came up with. Now, once you take a round brush to this equation or any other brush, right, and we're starting to actually polish hair off, now it's exceptionally important that we use something like this, which is, some people call it a diffuser, some people will call it an air modifier, but whatever it is basically just allowing us to control better where we distribute that heat. Now, to give you a very practical, visual understanding of how this works, grab your hairdryer sometime, and I want you to turn it on full heat, and I want you to hold your hand like this, okay? And do that only as long as it gets hot. Then I want you to do the same thing. Keep that blow dryer there and just hold your hand like this underneath it. Let that air blow over your hand and see how much longer you can hold it there. You're gonna find that it's a very different experience when you do this versus when you do this. And that's why these become so important, because it allows us to control exactly where that airflow is going. Now, if we control this air and we make sure that we're pushing that air down the hair shaft, okay, so if these are your hairs, down the hair shaft versus at your hair shaft, most people put a round brush in their hair and they go like this, and that is putting the air directly at the hair shaft versus holding their elbow up like this and blowing that air down the hair shaft. If I do it down the hair shaft, I'm adding much less heat in a much more deliberate manner that is also not only smoothing the cuticle down, helping to lock in a little bit of shine, and creating less damage. All those things are not just something I talk about, those things are exceptionally important when we talk especially about thin, fine, or potentially damage-prone hair. Now, after that, many times people are using some sort of hot tool. It's either a curling iron, flat iron, or something else, right? I've been using this from Time-O. If I'm completely honest with you, I actually prefer just a regular flat iron over this if I'm flat ironing hair on somebody else. Okay, I think that this is an incredibly good tool if you're trying to add a wave to your hair with the flat iron and you want the versatility of both. There's something about the way that this functions. Maybe it's because it acts similar to a curling iron, but for some reason, people that are really struggling with trying to get wave in their hair with the flat iron tend to do a really good job with this. It's like they just pick it up and it's much easier for them to understand. So for me, these are amazing for that. But they also have ceramic plates. Now that's very important no matter what flat iron or curling iron you get. No matter what hair is touching what part of this plate, it's all getting the same temperature. So it's much more efficient. That means much less time or many less passes that you have to go through with the iron to get the desired results. Then you want to just keep your iron cool enough. So I would set this has got a bunch of different heating settings, but I set it up at about the third little level right here, third little light. And that actually is more than warm enough to get the results that I'm looking for, and it's not too hot. But even if yours gets to 400, if it gets to 450, do never, I don't care what texture your hair is, never turn it above 400. There's no need for it. 450 will melt your hair. Now, if you're gonna round brush your hair, I have been using the Olivia Garden round brushes forever, but the key is what you're looking for is that there's all these perforations, and that helps to let the airflow through, which means that it's going to be much more efficient with blow drying, so you're getting heat on both sides. But also, these have a really good tension, so it's not too much to where it's gonna be potentially damaging, but not so little that you're not really getting any control out of hair. You don't want your hair to just sit on top of a brush and barely even turn with the brush. If it's just like the brush turns under it like this, then it's not enough tension. But if it's pulling your hair like that too much and you kind of can't get it through your hair, that's too much. You want it to just kind of roll through your hair relatively easy. And that's typically what this does. It gives me just enough tension to get even wavy hair a little bit straighter or curly hair even straight without being too much. And that is something that Olivia Garden brushes do exceptionally well. I'll link all of this stuff again in the description so that you can find it all. But if you're gonna use a brush, make sure that the tension is correct. Okay, so I told you earlier that there's a couple of products that I absolutely love that I believe are game changers. Still hate that word. But there's a whole nother aspect, which is actually making your head thicker, make it appear that you see less scalp. And we basically have two ways of doing that. And the first way is trying to actually address the hair growth. Now, hair loss can happen for a multitude of different reasons. There's all these things, so getting your blood work done first, that's gonna be the first step. And then trying to address all of those things collectively versus just one of them. So try to see if you can de-stress, try to see if we can get more active, get that blood flow going, make sure that we're eating all the stuff and the nutrients our body needs to actually help to promote hair growth, stimulating the blood circulation and stimulating the sebaceous glands to create a better environment for hair to grow. All of these things are important. And then if you need more help, this is when you talk to a doctor, or like I've been talking about Alloy, you can go to a company like Alloy and talk to them about minoxidil, right? You would reach out online, they've got doctors that you can speak with that will help make sure that it's a good fit for you. Low dose because we want to be careful about it, growing unwanted hairs. That is definitely an option for people. And I think if you're very concerned about hair falling out, that's a really strong option. I've been using it for a long time and I have seen hair growth on myself. But if you want hair to feel like it's there and you don't want to take anything, right? But you want it to look denser. I have been talking about hair fibers forever, and they are probably one of my favorite things. Now, I've been using these, I'm using them right now. I've got them in right now. You can't really see. So these are doing an incredible job of hiding the scalp, making your hair look denser. They rinse out the next day when you shampoo it or rinse it out. But they don't really seem to have an issue in the rain. I haven't seen them like fall down my forehead or anything like that. They don't build up. I haven't had any issues with them. They come in all sorts of different colors. I will say that if you're gonna get them, get the little spray pump nozzle. Makes a huge difference. It's so much easier to apply. And more importantly, try to get one that's a darker shade than yours if you cannot find one that matches your hair color specifically. A darker shade will always look a little bit better than if you go a lighter shade. They come in all different colors. You can even mix and match them a little bit. I usually mix a white and a black to create salt and pepper, which is what I use on my hair. These things are absolutely amazing for making hair look thicker, even when it's not. And they're just on a day-to-day basis. They're so simple. Those are the products that I use, and that's the process that I use. Again, if you need to find any of these, they're all linked in the description as well as the pinned comment or below. I hope that helps, and I appreciate you for hanging out. If you have any questions, you know where I'm at, comment below. Otherwise, if you like this video, you're probably gonna like this one. So why don't you head over there, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you next time. It's so hot in here. This is ridiculous. I'm out. I'm sweating. We'll see you later. My back is sweating right. Bye-bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye.